Absolutely.
Welcome to this evening's meeting of the Muskogee Municipal Authority. Roll call.
Mayor Bob Coburn.
Here.
Deputy Mayor James Scully.
Here.
Dan Hall.
Present.
Marlon Coleman.
Here.
Janie Boydston.
Here.
Wayne Johnson.
Here.
Patrick Kale.
Here.
Ivory Van.
Here.
Derek Reed.
Here.
All right. Regular agenda item number 1.
Approval of minutes for March 14th, 2016.
Are there additions or corrections to the minutes from March the 14th? If not, we'd entertain a motion.
Move for approval.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any comment or discussion? Roll call.
Deputy Mayor James Scully.
Yes.
Janie Boydston.
Yes.
Patrick Kale.
Yes.
Marlon Coleman.
Yes.
Wayne Johnson.
Yes.
Ivory Van.
Yes.
Derek Reed.
Yes.
Dan Hall.
Yes.
Mayor Coburn.
Yes. Motion carries. Item number 2.
Consider approval of MMA claims for month ending March 2016.
All right.
Move for
We
approval.
I'm sorry?
Move for approval.
Hey, we're
Second.
getting there. I got a motion and a second. Any discussion? Roll call.
Deputy Mayor James Scully.
Yes.
Janie Boydston.
Yes.
Patrick Kale.
Yes.
Marlon Coleman.
Yes.
Wayne Johnson.
Yes.
Ivory Van.
Yes.
Derek Reed.
Yes.
Dan Hall.
Yes.
Mayor Coburn.
Yes, motion carries. That concludes our agenda for the Muskogee Municipal Authority. We'll now go to the Muskogee City Council agenda. For today, the invocation will be by Councilman Ivory Van, and then join us for the flag salute following.
May we bow our heads, please. Our most gracious Heavenly Father, thank you for your grace and mercy. And Lord, just continue to still bless our city and keep us from all hurt, harm, and danger. And just thank you for all the things you give us, dear Lord. And just bless people all around the world, Lord, dear Lord, that have all the things that we have. And people should appreciate things and be thankful. For just keep our city safe and sound, dear Lord. For we ask all these blessings in your name for your sake. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Please join us for the flag salute. Attention, salute, pledge. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Mayor Bob Coburn.
Here.
Deputy Mayor James Scully.
Here.
Dan Hall.
Here.
Marlon Coleman.
Here.
Janie Boydston.
Here.
Wayne Johnson.
Here.
Patrick Kale.
Here.
Ivory Van.
Here.
Derek Reed.
Here.
We are all accounted for. We have Dan and Daniel Chipkoskis that are here to make a presentation to the city.
Before I open this up, I wanted to kind of give a little background here real quick. Back in 2012,
Yeah, get there so we can get the
back in
microphone.
2012, I approached Mayor Coburn and some of the council members, as well as Treasurer McKenzie over at the chamber, about the possibility of attracting a national ATV race. They run in places like Charlotte, North Carolina, Sturgis, all over the country. And so we made a pitch, and in 2013 we were awarded our first ATV Nationals. Had a good turnout in 2013. 2014 we were rained out. As think back about that time, it was just it was gully washer. 2015 we went at it again. Thought we were going to be rained out. We were able to put it on. Had a lot of support from the city, all of you as well. The chamber was just outstanding in what they did, and as a result, Muskogee was awarded the American Motorcycle Association Extreme Dirt Track Track of the Year.
Wow.
That was as opposed, and all of the tracks around the country were open for it. This was voted on not by just a select group. This is actually voted on by all of the riders, their pit crews that travel around and make this circuit. So really, for only the second time out that they were on our track, we were voted as Track of the Year. So I just took delivery of it here a few days ago, and I've got it here to present to you guys.
That's impressive. That's what I was thinking.
It's an adrenaline rush for sure. This past season, I was ranked 7th in the nation in pro and 3rd in pro-am. So really enjoy traveling, and especially being here in my hometown, being able to put on the race, One of the things that everyone always says when they come here to Muskogee is we have the nicest people. I think it's really neat to have them come here and experience what I think we take for granted sometimes. We have a really great city.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That looks as good as my toilet, Mayor. Just joking.
That's all that break your leg, I'm thinking. Okay, do we need to recognize the scout troop?
Yes.
672 from Oklahoma School for the Blind and 602 here today.
Welcome. We're glad to have you here. Yeah, appreciate it. We'll now consider the minutes from the March 28th meeting, 2016.
Move for approval.
Second.
Motion and a second. Is there any discussion or correction? Roll call.
Deputy Mayor James Scully.
Yes.
Janie Boydston.
Yes.
Patrick Kale.
Yes.
Marlon Coleman.
Yes.
Wayne Johnson.
Yes.
Ivory Van.
Yes.
Derek Reed.
Yes.
Dan Hall.
Yes.
Mayor Coburn.
Yes, motion carries. We'll now consider the consent agenda, which is items 1 through 14. Is there anything anyone would like to move to regular agenda? Entertain a motion regarding the consent agenda.
Move for approval.
Second.
Get a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Roll call.
Deputy Mayor James Scully.
Yes.
Janie Boydston.
Yes.
Patrick Kale.
Yes.
Marlon Coleman.
Yes.
Wayne Johnson.
Yes.
Ivory Van.
Yes.
Derek Reed.
Yes.
Dan Hall.
Yes.
Mayor Coburn.
Yes, motion carries. Then we'll go to item number 15.
Receive presentation of financial audit for City of Muskogee Foundation for fiscal year 2014-2015.
Mr. Tucker.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. As most of you saw in your packet, we do have a copy of the foundation's audit that was presented. Additionally, I have laid on your desk a bound copy for ease of your review. I believe we have Frank Merrick here from the City of Muskogee Foundation to go over the audit that was presented, but based on what our preliminary conversations held and my review, looks like it was a clean audit. So, Frank, I'll turn this over to you.
Roy, thank you very much. I'll be happy to answer any questions. I can go over the audit if you would like. Again, this year we received a clean audit from Clothier & Company, a CPA firm here in Muskogee. Our office in Oklahoma City has reviewed the audit and found no concerns that we had, and so as per the bylaws of the City of Muskogee Foundation, we are presenting the audit to you at this time.
Okay.
And again, I'd be happy to answer any questions if anybody has any about the audit.
Question or comment?
Looks good.
That's the plan, Jamie. We'd like it to look good.
Do we need a motion to accept the audit?
Frank, I got a quick question.
Yes, sir.
There's a few people out there that they're having problems understanding about why we went from like 130 million, dropped a little bit, the balance dropped a little bit. I tried to explain it to them, but I'm a police officer, not a financial guy, so.
The investments of the foundation are invested 60% in what we would call risk assets, stocks. 40% are in unrisky assets, basically bonds. And as you know, the stock market has gone up and it goes down. What I can say, we ended the year at $141 million. Ended our fiscal year, June 30th, 2015, at $141 million. We fell down in the last half of 2015 and the first months in 2016. We are now back up to being whole at where we were at the end of the fiscal year. The calendar year, excuse me. So 60% of the assets are at risk. I will say that the foundation has received monies of less than $100 million in original contributions. I can't tell you the exact amount of money we've given away, but it's north of $50 million. And now we are, well, maybe not north of $50 million. I can get you that number, Dan, but we've given away a substantial amount of money, and we're at $141 million at the end of this year. Had we not have invested in risk assets, we would be nowhere near that amount of money. And so that's, and I could go into more detail about how the money's invested. It is invested under James Gully was the first chair of our finance committee. It's invested in what we would call indexed funds. So as the stock market goes up, we go up in proportion, and we go down in proportion. It is a very efficient and low-cost way to manage our money, but you are subject to the whims of the market.
And we had a bad whim here a while back.
We had a bad whim. I will say, of all the companies that we manage in our office, and we manage 20-plus organizations like the City of Muskogee Foundation, the City of Muskogee Foundation's investment returns are at the very top of our list. You received your money in 2008, and if many of you remember, 2008 and 2009 were terrible years. We did not start investing the money until March of 2009, where we actually called the bottom. We started at the very bottom of the correction that happened in 2008 and 2009. So that was blind luck, but it turned out to be really wise on the behalf of the Finance Committee.
I appreciate that. I had several people asking about how it bounces around, and I said, I knew we had some risk stocks and everything, but I didn't know how to explain it to them, and you did a wonderful job. I appreciate that.
Thank you. I will say Councilman Gully has been on the Finance Investment Committee since the very beginning, and I believe that committee has made some incredibly wise decisions, and that has given us the returns that we do have.
Yeah. And we're excited that he's been on here for a long, long time.
Been great.
I'm not sure if that was sincere or not.
We need a motion in regard to the
For
sincerity
approval.
of it, or
Second.
do we need a motion in a second?
To accept,
To
yes.
accept the audit. Any question or comment? All right, roll call.
Deputy Mayor James Scully.
Yes.
Janie Boydston.
Yes.
Patrick Kale.
Yes.
Marlon Coleman.
Yes.
Wayne Johnson. Yes. Ivory Van.
Yes.
Derek Reed.
Yes.
Dan Hall.
Yes.
Mayor Coburn.
Yes, motion carries. Mr. Merrick, thank you.
Thank you very much.
And we would not be where we are today as a city if it were not for the City of Muskogee Foundation. We're incredibly appreciative of that. Item number 16, please.
Receive report from the Greater Muskogee Area Chamber of Commerce as to the financial condition, project status, and progress towards achieving goals and objectives of promoting and soliciting convention and tourism activities and business for the City of Muskogee, and take any necessary action.
Marcy, I'm going to give it to Mr. Tucker first, because this is his item on the agenda.
Thank you, Mayor and members of the council. Pursuant to a contract that the City of Muskogee has with the Greater Muskogee Chamber of Commerce, that agency is required to present to us a yearly report on tourism, and they have contacted us and asked to be on the agenda tonight. To do that, you should have received a packet of information that was distributed at the Diaz here. And with that, I'll turn it over to our new tourism director, Marcy Diaz-Apple.
Thank you. Very new tourism director. I just came on with the tourism department and Chamber of Commerce in January. So today we're reporting on the 14-15 fiscal year. I just wanted to start out with a few tourism basics. This is for me and for you. Anita is going to join in just a few minutes and talk about the advertising piece as well as the hot tax numbers that need to be reported on.
Marcy, could you tell people what the hot tax is?
Yes, hotel motel tax. Thank you.
For everybody else here.
That's a new word to me too. So, to develop, promote, foster, and otherwise advertise the City of Muskogee as a tourist and convention destination managed by the Chamber's team of tourism and business professionals, joined by a multitude of passionate volunteers. That's the purpose of tourism. Just a quick review of the Chamber and tourism staff. Treasurer McKenzie is our president and CEO. She could not be here this evening. She's on a business trip. Myself as the new tourism director. Mia Trout is our marketing director, who's also not here this evening because she is just moments away from having a baby. So Anita and I are gonna do our best to explain a little bit of the advertising that Mia heads up. She does an amazing job, and we kind of have our own in-house guru when it comes to Mia. Anything that you see in the Real Okie bag tonight, the brochures, the activities guide, all of those things have been designed in-house by me, and she's just a real talent and an asset to our team. Anita is here tonight. She is the outgoing tourism director, but we were able to convince her to stay on board with us part-time because we have a growing need for the community calendar right now. It's evolving a little bit faster than we can keep up with. So Anita has stayed on board to be the community and TAP administrator. And if you don't know what TAP is, we're going to explain that a little bit more later. Sherry Pylant is our communications coordinator, Angela Wilson, sales and program director, Angie O'Neill, office manager, and Sharon Sharp is our part-time administrative assistant. Although the tourism budget directly supports only 2 full-time and 2 half-time employees, the entire chamber staff, along with our volunteers, spend countless hours making sure Muskogee is well represented as a unique and welcoming place to visit. And as you can see in this picture here, this is from our recent chamber banquet. We had a lot of fun. This was a chamber function, but as a team, tourism helped out with this event, just like the chamber helps out with many tourism events. The City of Muskogee's mandate to tourism is not limited to, but includes promotions, community support, product development, networking, professional development, convention and event recruitment, information, visitor tracking, education, and trade shows, and also a visitor center, both downtown at the Chamber of Commerce and our Tourism Information Center. How do we fulfill our mandate? Accountability, partnerships, and advertising. We are guided and held accountable by our Tourism Committee and the Chamber Board of Directors. Our Tourism Committee, is chaired by Al Stevens, Mayor Coburn, James Gully, Daniel Miller, Johnny Teehee, Holly Rosser Miller, Mike Martin, Marlon Coleman, Kevin Eigert, Nicholas Wilkes, and Rhonda Overby. We also have listed here our Chamber Board of Directors. Any decision that is made or is passed by the Tourism Committee still has to go through our Board of Directors. Again, I won't go through the entire name of list here, but there is an accountability system in place at all times. Partnerships, these are just some of the examples. We have 2 different grant programs through the tourism department. Annual support grants, which are for established organization and events like the hugely successful chili cook-off that we just wrapped up this weekend. The crowd was just crazy. I couldn't believe I hadn't seen a chili cook-off crowd that large in a long time. It was wonderful. The Bull Riders National Finals back in January sold out both nights. Great success. Bare Bones International Film Festival is right around the corner, as well as Party in the Park this weekend. Exchange Club's River Rumba and the Mudstock event put on by McCoy's to benefit Wish. Community support grants, it's really more for new events or seed money for smaller events that are trying to get on the map and eventually graduate to annual support grants. Some of these that we've done in the past year are Real Okie Craft Beer Festival, The Wall That Heals, Art Under the Oaks, which this year Art Under the Oaks is celebrating their 50th anniversary at 5 Civilized Tribes Museum. Just recently, we had a grant for the MMA Uprising brought to you by Frontline Fight League. This was a brand new event. Zombie Run at the Castle, Garden of Lights Run, and Muskogee Veteran Memorial Run. These are just some more projects funded by the special projects portion of the tourism budget. These aren't grants that you have to apply for. These are just events that come up last minute that sometimes need money now. And this is just a list of some of the events that we've supported this year. All of these events bring people in from out of town. One that I want to draw special attention to that was kind of a quick thing that happened and it ended up being a great successful thing was providing lodging for the Norman girls basketball team during that recent Muskogee tournament. And I'd like to say thank you to Dan Hall for helping with that. That was a great thing to bring to town.
Thank you.
Hosted the Oklahoma Municipal League's Citizens Academy Leadership Training. The Fleet Managers Convention was a huge success. All of these things are just funded under special projects that don't necessarily need a grant application. Other things that go on behind the scenes, the little things aren't so little. Step-on guides for tour groups, itinerary planning, answering tourism-related phone calls, mailing visitor and relocation packet, greeting visitors at the Visitor Information Center, stuffing goodie bags for groups and conferences, hospitality in the form of booking hotels, venues, speakers, and caterers, and the distribution of 70,000 activities guides yearly. I'm going to pass it over to Anita at this time. She's going to talk about advertising and hotel motel tax. Thank you.
Thank you, Marcy. I'm not quite that tall. It's both a pleasure and an honor to be able to be here again this year to present to you on behalf of the Chamber. And we'll talk now about advertising. These are the different areas that we spend our advertising dollars on, and about a third of our tourism budget is designated for advertising. We are moving heavier each year into the digital market. We strive to keep up with the rest of the world and with trends, and digital's the way to go. So we're moving there quickly. We do digital advertising both with Google Ads and with search engine optimization, as well as our social media channels. Our social media has grown tremendously this year, and we'll show you that chart in just a minute. We employ a company called Digital Generator out of Edmond that we feel very blessed to be able to do business with. The lady who formed that company was the state digital marketing person for Travel OK for 13 years. So she has a lot of experience, and she also had the benefit at the state travel agency of being trained directly by Google representatives. And that kind of information not everybody has. It's very difficult to get into that category where Google is spending one-on-one time with you each week. So she has a wealth of expertise. And as I said, you'll see how that's benefited Muskogee in just a minute. Of course, we also do print advertising in local, regional, and national publications, and we'll show you some examples of the print advertising that we've done. We do billboards all around. I was in Sallisaw this morning on I-40 and saw a G-Fest board that we put up. And if you've traveled to the west, traveling west down I-40, I doubt that you will miss that board. It really sticks out at you. It's a left-hand read, but there's nothing else around it, and it really looks great. We have several of those positioned on the I-41, as well as a couple on the Turnpike in Muskogee, toward Tulsa, and then we have several here around town as well. And then we have our internal billboards that have more of a local flavor message with the hashtag #MyMuskogee and the Real Okie logo on there. Television, we do some occasionally. We don't do a lot of TV advertising, but that's in our basket, and we certainly capitalize on those opportunities when they're available. We do radio ads, and then we do lots and lots of brochures. We do not only our activities guide, which is the most comprehensive piece of marketing that we do. It includes just about everything. You've got one, I think, were you provided with Real Okie bags? You've got our 2016 activities guide there, and that lists just about everything that you could possibly get into a print piece about Muskogee for someone visiting. Where to eat, where to stay, what to do, all kinds of things are in that activities guide. So that's our primary piece. But then we also do separate brochures. We have a museum brochure. We are working currently with Three Rivers Museum on a map that's going to be sort of an Old West adventure kind of map that will be great for families to do when they come through. We work on all kinds of different things. So it's not just advertising that we do in print publications. We do other things as well. This is a chart that's kind of hard to see. I hope it's more readable on your monitors. This is a listing of the 36 tourism agencies, CVBs, Convention and Visitor Bureaus across the state who participate in Facebook. And we all know that Muskogee is a heavy Facebook town. We haven't quite caught up with Twitter yet. We're not real heavy into that, but boy, we use the Facebook. Well, Digital Generator has moved Muskogee from number 35, which is there weren't 36 at the time they started. They started for us in November of 2014. And in that short span of, 15 and a half months, we have gone from number 35 to number 32, to number 2, from 35 to 2. We're still quite a ways away from number 1, but that's our goal, and we'll get there. It'll just take a little time. So we've done very well in Facebook. Our Pinterest page has recently blown up. Our Instagram page is doing quite well, and our Twitter page is doing well too. So we encourage you, and anybody here in the audience, if you're active on social media, visit Muskogee. We encourage you. We need help. We need all the local help that we can get, besides help from outside. Because as Marcy talked about, the purpose of tourism and the purpose of chamber is sometimes the line is blurred for a lot of people, but they're very different. We work in the same office, and we work together, and we certainly represent each other and cooperate with each other on events. But while Chamber is a membership organization that represents local businesses and the interests of the members who are local businesses, tourism focus is outside. We promote Muskogee to those outside and encourage them to come here and give them great reasons for coming here to spend their money with us, rather than spending their money in other places. So while those visions and those focus, those missions are entirely different, they still mesh and work well together inside an office. But that's important for you to understand that distinction, because a lot of times, I mean, there certainly is a community piece in our tourism mission. We need to make Muskogee a great place to live in order to make it a great place to visit. But our primary focus, certainly with our advertising and our marketing piece, is to reach people in other places and encourage them to come to Muskogee. Who's number 1? We are number 1. No, number 1 in that. Oklahoma City. We're behind. Or was it Norman? I can't remember.
Yeah, I think it's Oklahoma City.
Okay. Yeah, we've passed Tulsa a long time ago. Long time. These are a couple of examples of our advertising that Mia has designed, and she is good, to say the least. She's such an asset. You probably at this point all recognize the G-Fest advertising. The billboards look different. Of course, they're long this way, and they don't have nearly as much information on them. But that's what the G-Fest palm cards look like, and the posters that have been displayed around. And then the one on the right there is a piece of motorcycle tourism advertising that Mia designed for us. She designed that logo. That's the logo that goes on all of our motorcycle advertising now. And this particular ad is on the saddlebags of Terry Collier's motorcycle. Terry is the editor and owner of Thunder Roads magazine, and she literally attends hundreds of motorcycle rallies across the country every year. And every place she goes, she takes Muskogee's advertising with her, and her saddlebags are full of our ride guides that you see the little picture of down there in the bottom. That's an award-winning, a state award-winning piece that was done several years ago, and we're updating the cover and changing it just a little bit, but it's a great piece of advertising for motorcycle tourism. And we also support a Facebook page called Ride Muskogee for bikers, and that has grown from about 200 or 300 followers to over 1,000 now in the last year. Motorcyclists love the kind of area that we have. A lot of people, certainly from Oklahoma City to the west, they don't have the benefit of the hills and curves and bodies of water that we have here. And as a biker myself, I could tell you that it's pretty boring to ride in western Oklahoma. I lived in Elk City for a while and even in Burns Flat, and I would have given anything at that time to have the kind of hills and curves that we have here. So that's what we promote. When we go to a bike rally somewhere, we take photos with us. We have all of that kind of stuff, but we have bikers. My husband and I are avid bikers, and we enjoy talking to people from other places about what we have to offer here in eastern Oklahoma. And that's why that motorcycle piece of our tourism puzzle it's a very important piece, because just like golfers or anybody else who spends money, generally speaking, bikers have money to spend. That's what they like to do. That's why they have that bike sitting in the garage, is to ride it. And when you ride somewhere to do something, to eat or to see something, to see the batfish. There are a lot of veterans who are bikers. And motorcycle tourism is very, very important to the tourism picture in Muskogee. Oh, I switched slides and didn't know it. This was one of our Dancing in the District billboards that Mia did for us last year. This one was out by the Super 8 out south of town on 69. This is an ad from this spring that is going into several print publications. And you'll notice that hashtag #MyMuskogee. Again, I would encourage those of you who are active on social media, when you're at an event or when that's cool, or you're somewhere that you're enjoying yourself in Muskogee, where maybe somewhere where you've gotten a good meal or you're experiencing great customer service. If it's something post-worthy and you're going to post about it, use that hashtag #MyMuskogee. That's a great thing. That has unlimited possibilities. But we need Muskogee people to help us with those kinds of things. Grow that interest. Help us to do that. And you'll see that a lot of our advertising, especially in the spring, we try to list as many events as we possibly can. Then we also advertise or promote individual events on our social media continually. This is an ad that Mia did. This will come out in a couple of different places. One place you'll see it is in the Bare Bones program for the Bare Bones International Film Festival coming up. This just, as well as pictures possibly could, I think this represents Muskogee in a wonderful, colorful, exciting way. This is one of my favorite things that Mia has done. Not many words, but it shows you and tells you who we are. And then, of course, our website and community calendar. And I am very, very blessed, very honored to be able to continue to work with the Chamber. And this turned out as a wonderful personal opportunity for me, because as many of you know, I had a grandbaby. That's why I'm not the tourism director anymore. I had a little granddaughter and have the opportunity to keep her a couple of days a week while Mom and Daddy work. But then the Chamber offered me an opportunity part-time as well, where I can be the administrator of the community calendar and also of our TAP system, because we've come to the point to where we've outgrown the community calendar that we have. Things are evolving too quickly. Muskogee's evolving too quickly. There's too much going on. And the system that we have is not terribly user-friendly, and we need someone who can search for events and put them on that calendar. Because at this point, we haven't gotten the participation from the community in posting their own events that we had hoped to see. Well, we don't want to just let that community calendar go down the tube. We need to develop it and make it better, because it has the potential to be the go-to place for Muskogee events. So not only do we need somebody to administer that on a dedicated basis, but we're also looking at a much better upgrade of a community calendar system, a format of I guess a format's the way to say it, a different type of system. And you'll be seeing that before long. It's a much more colorful, much more user-friendly system. And we hope that by keeping that community calendar up and current with just about everything we can possibly find. I mean, I spend about 15 hours a week searching Facebook and Google and every place I can search, just looking for events happening in Muskogee. And there are a lot of them. Anybody who says there's nothing going on in Muskogee would have to be just all but dead or not even trying to find something to do, because there's always something going on in Muskogee. And we want to have that all on our community calendar. So we've got a lot going on in that respect. We're also looking at a different web host for our website that can help us to have sort of a better way for visitors, mainly, to be able to access the things that they need. We'd like to have a different sort of front door, you might say, on our website, where visitors can choose, I want to see the stuff that visitors need to see. And chamber people or locals can see the stuff that they might be looking for. So those are some of the updates that we're planning to do very soon, within the next few months, in that regard. And then here's TAP. TAP is, we're the only tourism agency in Oklahoma who has an electronic delivery system, a touch screen type thing, or any type of electronic delivery system that can be located in places around the community, or for that matter, in other communities. My goodness, we may have one in Dallas one of these days, I hope. The TAP kiosk, that stands for Tourist Assistance Portal. And we have one at the new Quick Trip here in Muskogee. We also have one located at McDonald's on the Turnpike. And what it is it's simply a touchscreen kiosk that basically, it has our activities guides on it in just digital format. All these brochures that we produce, those are all on there. There are different, there's sort of a fan-out kind of thing that looks like rack cards that you might find in a tourist information center for all of our attractions and that kind of thing. And it's just a really cool way to present our tourism information to people as they might be coming through town. And there's a couple of different things that we're expanding as far as TAP goes. When we switch calendar formats, the calendar that we're looking at can talk to the TAP system and keep our calendar updated so that all of the events that are listed on our community calendar will be continually available on the TAP kiosk, and that'll be coming very soon. And then the developers of this system are also working on a soundbite piece that will attract people's attention, you know, like when you're in the Halloween store and the scary things jump out at you. This will have a soundbite piece to get your attention as you're passing by. So we're really excited about TAP. It was only installed the end of October, and through our personnel changes and that kind of stuff, we're just now beginning to crack the tip of that iceberg in developing content and making it really, really exciting. And then this is our wayfinding signage that you've probably heard about for a year or two now. And then, looky there, they're being installed. That's really cool. Really, really cool. The city made a huge investment of $100,000 in this project, and tourism made a supporting contribution of $60,000, as well as a $10,000 annual line item in our budget for maintenance of those signs as time goes on. And then our hotel motel tax, you can see in 2013-14, the total collected was $836,000. Our tourism budget that has stayed level for several years now was $690,000. We had a residual left of $146,000 that was left for the city to spend on other tourism activities. Last year, hotel motel tax increased to almost $928,000, and as I said, our budget remained the same, which left a residual for the city to spend on other tourism activities of almost $238,000. And we're on track to have at least that much residual again this year, and I think it will be more than that. But we're on track for at least that amount. And if you have no questions, I'd be happy to entertain questions if you have any.
Yes. Is there questions or comments?
Yes, ma'am. May I recognize her?
Sure.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
On the hotel and motel tax, how much money would we make? About $28 per person when they stay here at night?
Oh, no, it's much more than that. According to the 2013, and the reason it's so late is so old is because the state has not kept up with getting the reporting out, because they pay independent agencies to produce those reports. But in 2013, according to the State of Oklahoma Travel and Recreation Department, a visitor to our community spends approximately $68 a day, and that's if they don't spend the night. If they do spend the night, they spend closer to $200. Now, whether every single visitor spends that in Muskogee or not, I don't know. But those are the Muskogee County statistics that we got from the state of Oklahoma. So,
go ahead.
Huh?
Go ahead.
Yeah, well, I'm just saying that that sounds awfully high, but that's certainly what the state travel department tells us that a visitor spends in Muskogee County. $68 a day if they don't spend the night.
If they don't spend the night.
$197 if they do spend the night, and of course that would include their lodging costs.
Well, the reason I asked you this, I had some calls today, and I know you were going to be up here talking about motel and hotel tax. And what I don't quite understand is, we're getting that kind of money off each person that stay here in Muskogee per night. Why are our taxes so flat? I wonder.
Our hotel motel tax or our sales tax?
Sales tax. We get people coming to visit us, and we're making money like this, but why is our taxes so flat? Our sales taxes so flat. If we're getting all this, people visiting us and spending money here in Muskogee, blah blah blah. Why are we so flat?
I really don't have an answer for that question. I'm sorry. I don't have an answer for that. That's a very good question.
That's why other people here in Muskogee, other citizens that I represent, they have that same question.
Well, I can tell you that all of our attractions participate in visitor tracking. And I think the example that I gave you last year was that even if we cut that number in half, we tracked 1.5 million visitors to Muskogee last year. And granted, if somebody visited the Three Rivers Museum and then they went out to the Batfish, they would have been counted twice. And if anybody, by the way, before I go further, if anybody here has a better way to track our visitors, we'd love to know about it. But we talk with tourism departments everywhere, even across the nation when we go to national conventions and such. And nobody has come up with a better way to track visitors than a log at your attractions. So we do the best we can. But that's why I would submit to you that even if we cut that number in half, that's still 750,000 visitors to Muskogee each year. I mean, and cutting it in half, that's a huge cut. So I think that would be more than fair. And the best that we can do on calculating how much a visitor spends in Muskogee is to take the information that's available to us, and that is what's published by the State Travel and Tourism Department that is pared down per county. And I think all of us would agree that in Muskogee County, Muskogee's going to get the biggest part of that. And they tell us it was $68 a day in 2013. I don't know of any place else that we could find more solid statistics than those two ways of tracking. But we're certainly open to better ways if there are better ways out there. So I hope I've answered that question to your satisfaction. That's the best answer I can provide.
Thank you. I yield the floor back to you, Mayor.
Thank you, sir. Are there other comments or questions?
Well, I'll comment to equate, if my calculations are correctly, $900,000 in hotel motel tax with those visitors spending $68, it would be somewhere around 150,000 to 170,000 in sales tax revenue for those. So, we could be up that, but that's about what the sales tax revenue would be on that 900,000 number.
Okay.
We increase about 1.5–2% in our sales tax per year, which would account for some of that. Other things that would account for that, fuel tax. If they're getting gas, city's not going to get all that money. That goes to the state and is redistributed based upon population. So, there are a bunch of different factors that would certainly be anecdotal for determining why sales tax isn't necessarily directly tied to the hotel motel tax, and that's one of the things that the sales tax growth team is looking at. And so I think we'll have a better answer once that committee has reached its has at least had the opportunity to study it and make a recommendation and issue some findings.
But it's not a stretch to say that it can't be bad for Muskogee.
No.
Absolutely.
Other questions or comments?
I'd just like to thank you for a good job that you do.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. We appreciate that. We don't hear that terribly often, and I don't mean to cry, but seriously, just like you guys probably hear a lot more complaints than you hear compliments. Believe me, so do we. So that's very nice to hear. Thank you.
Well, we were in a bind a little bit this last year in our basketball tournament for the Shrine Tournament, and y'all pulled us through, and I appreciate that.
You're quite welcome.
And the girls' basketball team that showed up here, they enjoyed it too. They also, what a lot of people didn't understand about that is they got in a bind because of weather that was happening in their area, and so they actually had to stay one more night, and we appreciate that.
Yeah.
And because of that, we've got more teams coming back to our tournament this year, more quality teams, higher ranked teams.
Yeah.
And you're benefiting our tournament.
Those kind of events, like a basketball tournament, they've got to stay,
Yes.
especially when you draw teams from that far away. And that's where those expenditures come from. They're gonna eat, and they're gonna, maybe do a little shopping, who knows. So those are really, and that's why we were able to do that, because it's definitely a tourism event, because those people come, that's heads and beds right there.
Yes. And we appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Other comments or questions? Thank you, Anita. Great job.
Thanks.
And I text you a note just a second ago on a meeting that I would like you to attend, if possible. So if you'd look at that when you get just a second. All right. Do we need to do anything on that in terms of a motion, or just accept the report?
Accept the report.
All right. So we'll move to item number 17.
Discuss and take action to accept proposal and, if appropriate, add, alternate from recommended vendor to provide Wi-Fi infrastructure at Hatbox, and authorize the city manager to negotiate and execute a contract or take other necessary action.
Michael Miller.
Yes,
Yes,
hello.
sir.
Mayor, City Council, it's my pleasure to appear before you. As you know, we've taken a little extra time to review the proposals we received. In that process, we had a couple of opportunities to review, and we put together a new committee that had some senior staff to review the proposals in depth and in detail. When that committee got together, it was Don Garvin, Mike Stewart, and Ty Pickering, with Chris Cummings, of course, our IT director, being a consultant and helping them go through it. When they looked through proposals, they came to the conclusion that they needed a little bit more information. They wanted to interview and talk to the vendors that had submitted the proposals, and so we took a little extra time to do that, brought the vendors in last week. So the committee had a chance to talk to them, ask questions, and really flesh out what the proposals were and how those proposals stacked up against each other. So you have seen the results. Those are in your packet, the score sheets from those vendors, as well as the proposals that those vendors put together. I'm going to ask that Ty Pickering from the committee step forward and kind of walk you through the process that they used and the conclusion that they've come to.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, councilors. As Mr. Miller advised, on March 31st, there was a committee consisting of myself, Mr. Gary Garvin, and Mr. Mike Stewart. We were tasked with reviewing the two RFPs in reference to the Wi-Fi proposal at the Love Hatbox, in reference to mainly servicing the upcoming G-Fest. During our initial meeting, we discussed the proposals, and it was determined that more time was needed to thoroughly review each one of them. During our initial reviews, it was discovered that both RFPs were flawed. They had mistakes and items that were left out. Later on that afternoon, through an exchange of emails, it was decided that individual interviews with each vendor would clear up any questions or concerns that we had. Chris Cummings scheduled those interviews for Wednesday, April the 6th. The first one started at 1 o'clock in the afternoon with PCLZ, and we finished up with DICE Communications. I have the score sheet here with the questions and everything that we've asked. I trust it's in your packet. I'm not going to go through it line by line. If there's something that you read in your review of this and you have any questions or concerns, I'd be happy to address them. At the conclusion of the interviews, the committee discussed the facts that were presented. After a short discussion, we independently scored the vendors based on the score sheet that was provided by Chris Cummings. The vendors were rated from 1 to 10 in 3 categories. Those categories being general quality and responsiveness, personnel, and price breakdown. Attached to the question sheet that you have in your packet is the overall cumulative score.
Are there questions or comments?
I have a little more information for you. Some of the factors we considered. DICE's background. Let me jump ahead a little bit. We as a committee are recommending that we go with DICE Communications based on their past work history as far as projects of this nature, as well as them being the lowest price point. Some of the things that helped us come to that conclusion: DICE's background is exactly what this scope of work entails in this RFP. DICE is willing to have 2 engineers, and I might add, overly willing to have 2 engineers on property for the entire event, 24 hours a day, as long as we're willing to provide them with a RV space. They will provide their own RV, and they will be there 24 hours the whole time that the event's going on.
With 85 with 85 different acts being booked, I'm sure they want to be there the whole time.
I bet so too.
So do a lot of other people.
DICE's hardware solution, which goes by the name of Aruba, is the same hardware that was used in the Super Bowl this past year. It is part of the Hewlett-Packard Enterprises Corporation, and as you know, Hewlett-Packard is an internationally known brand and considered an industry leader. DICE's solution is what's known as a mesh system. The mesh system provides an overlap of signal as well as ease of expansion, just in case the future use plan for Hatbox is realized, i.e. the Expo Center or whatever. This system is easily expanded upon.
Will this reach all the way over to the water park like we intended? If we go with, is there 2 different bids?
Correct. If we go with Phase 1 and Phase 2, it will reach all the way out to the water park.
What's the total cost if we do Phase 1 and Phase 2?
By my unscientific math, Phase 1 for DICE, they came in at $56,787.84. PCLZ came in at $59,495. For Phase 2, $26,781.24 for DICE, and $63,600 for PCLZ. Grand total for DICE was $83,569, where PCLZ was $123,095.
And that is an apples for apples comparison based on your
Yes, sir.
Your knowledge. Okay.
I've got some questions. I see that some of the DICE representatives are here. Number one, it appeared that their coverage on the front half proposal, or the front side proposal, was a little larger. And from what I know and what I've read, I I think they've got a solid system and proposal. One question that he might, or somebody might be able to educate me on, is I did just enough research to scare myself about the mesh system instead of the point-to-point, where every time you transfer, you lose half, you lose half, you lose half. Could somebody explain to me why that may not be the case, or yes, that is the case, but I just want to make sure that if we put in a system and folks are wanting to send their YouTube videos out to family or friends, or do some live streaming, or do some of the things that the folks do with their phones today, if we're going to get bottlenecked, or if all that stuff's going to work seamlessly.
Okay, I would defer any technical questions to them in that regards. I can tell you that the three members of the committee, when we first started this deal, and at first blush, we were all big proponents of the point-to-point communication. But the more and more we did research into this deal, and as far as, like I said, future expansion, I know, being a police officer here in the city of Muskogee, I know we want our travel, tourism focal point to be Hatbox. It's easy access. That's where a lot of our industry, or not industry, but as far as our restaurants and everything is out that way. And for future use and expansion, and several years ago there was a big map of Hatbox, and you had different things everywhere. This is our best solution. But as far as your question, I'd be happy to defer it to either Chris or a DICE representative.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll let DICE explain their equipment. They know it better than I do. It's not a half by half loss. So.
Yeah, and it's for instance, you see all kinds of.
Sure. So my name's Trey Lester. I'm actually with Aruba Networks, which is the provider of the Wi-Fi, Hewlett-Packard company. Just wanted to let you know kind of the way the technology works. A point-to-point is great for one single situation. However, the thing you have to keep in mind is that if you're going from point-to-point here, the point-to-point there, the point-to-point here, and then you also need wireless access points in the middle of each, you're not really solving that problem. To get it to work right, you'd have to have one big central location that shoots down every single point at the same time. So the way that we're proposing it here versus what I assume the other company doing point-to-points is, there's not going to be much difference. The other big thing is that with our radios, we actually have significantly higher amounts of density than the typical radio, and we do that on purpose. That's really what we strive for, meaning that we're not actually going to lose half every single time. So if you guys have any other questions, I can get technical or try and stay high, just whatever you prefer.
No, I do know that there's some new equipment out there that seems to be able to not lose the, and I don't know what the term is, but not have the fall off that.
Sure. Well, so there's a finite amount of bandwidth that we can have. With radio waves, there's only certain radio waves the FCC allows to be used without, having a permit and things like that. So, the more connections that you have, you're going to lose some of that, and that's why you end up losing half. The problem is with this, doing a point-to-point, you're going to lose pretty close to the same amount anyway because of how close we are and everything else along that nature. So just kind of depends on how far you want that signal to go, whether a point-to-point or a mesh works better. The other thing to keep in mind is that if you get to the point where you are really losing half, which you're not going to get there, that it's going to be important to realize, sorry, little butterflies.
You're good.
Lost my train of thought, so we'll just leave it there.
Well, we were talking about the loss of point-to-point being about the same to an extent. I guess it all really, it doesn't make much difference whether you've got a stadium. If you've got a stadium with people trying to all get on either system, it really isn't going to matter.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And the other piece that I was getting at is you also have to keep in mind how much throughput you actually need. So let's say we're using handheld devices, they're coming back to your servers or whatever it is that we'd like to use. You're still not using the threshold of half of half of half. So at that point, why have that extra speed right at that time?
It is in the future, if we deem it that we've got a big GFest event and we're having some bottlenecks, is that solved by adding some more radios or?
More radios can help. The thing that would help the most is to have more points of connection that come back in. So let's think of it this way. If we're going out to the internet and we only have one radio that actually goes to the internet.
So at that point, you'd have 3 Suddenlink hard hookups.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly. And that's kind of how you solve any of that. The more ways you have to get back to the main source of what you're going to, the better it is.
I'm thinking the free RV space makes a whole lot of sense because you got 2 people you can get around the neck if it's not working. The 16th, 17th, and 18th of June.
I've got a question for Chris.
Here to clarify, not necessarily 3 different lines coming in from Suddenlink, but 3 or 4 or 5 different points attaching to that Suddenlink.
Point.
Yes.
Okay.
They're called, in a mesh network, they're called root points.
Yes, sir.
So if you only have one root point, then that's where everything comes back home to, and that's where you get a bottleneck. So as we were saying,
So instead of everything trying to go go and then hit the one point,
Right.
if this one's hooked up, it'll go here and then to
Exactly.
here. Okay.
So what we would do is we would create other root points, and we can do that by a mixture of direct backhaul and mesh.
Well, there's arguments for both of them, and the practical aspect and the coverage aspect, the mesh system was touted highly. Chris, did you address the tear down and rebuild? I mean, with this equipment doesn't need to be dismantled.
No, in fact, the prices that Mr. Pickering gave you was exclusive of the tear down amount.
But do we even need tear down?
No, sir.
Okay.
No, sir.
Okay.
We determined it's going to stay up there anyway. It's
That's what this stuff's built for.
Exactly.
Okay.
So.
Thank you.
Mr. Tucker, the amount to do phase 1 and phase 2, if we did it that way, that would cover everything that we're trying to accomplish, short term and long term, that Councilor Hall had been suggesting, and it comes out of the budget that we've already approved for GFest.
Correct.
And I don't know what my colleagues think. I just think that I don't think we should do just enough to be good. I think we should do enough to be great. And if the money's already there, I don't know what kind of motion we need.
And we anticipated that would be the case. And we did double check the budget to make sure that with everything that we've approved so far, that we would have sufficient funding to do both phase 1 and phase 2, so that those funds are available. If we're talking about an appropriate motion, I would simply suggest that the motion be to authorize the city manager to negotiate and execute a contract inclusive with DICE Communication, inclusive of both phase 1 and phase 2.
That would be my motion if it can carry.
I'll second it.
We got a second. So it carries. Is there other comments or discussion?
Chris, one last question. Now, there is a way that we can, like for the ticket kiosks and all that kind of stuff that we're going to use to pay the tickets, that will be primary first, right?
Yes, sir. That will carry with it coding that makes it priority traffic on the network.
Okay, I'm ready.
All right. Roll call.
Deputy Mayor James Scully.
Yes.
Janie Boydston.
Yes.
Patrick Kale.
Yes.
Marlon Coleman.
Yes.
Wayne Johnson.
Yes.
Ivory Vane. Derek Reed.
Yes.
Dan Hall.
Yes.
Mayor Coburn.
Yes, motion carries, and that'll move us to item number 18.
Consider approval to declare 5.54 acres of real property located at Green Hill Cemetery as surplus and authorize the city manager to negotiate a contract to sell with Muskogee County Board of Commissioners.
Vernon Martin.
Mayor and Council, good evening. This 5.54 acres is located in the southeast corner of the cemetery. Commissioner Doak had approached the city once he discovered that the county didn't actually own everything that they were using. It is my understanding that he's wanting to build a county barn over there. I have looked at this and determined and helped the surveyors kind of set the boundaries on this. It is, in my opinion, that the sale of this will not affect any kind of future use for the cemetery directly because of the cremation rates that are current as well as projected. The possible sale of this, 100% of these of the funds collected will actually go back into the cemetery care fund, and will help fund the future projects. Our columbarium project is kind of what we have in mind. So I am asking that everyone consider approving this sale.
What did you tell us the other night? Your the ratio between traditional burial and cremation was, is it about 50-50, or did you say about 60%?
Well, different states kind of vary. Oklahoma, Texas, Missouri, kind of we're kind of in what some refer to as the buckle of the Bible Belt, and so we are kind of in that still that traditional burial. Oklahoma is in about 32 to 37% cremation rate, which is about national average. We're a little bit behind. We have some states, Arizona, Florida, Washington, some of those outer states that are actually in the 70% cremation rate. By the year 2018, CANA, which stands for the Cremation Association of North America, and that is the United States and Canada combined, they are predicting that by the year 2018, just around the corner, that the national average will jump from this 32 to 35% up to approximately 55% for the nationwide. Now, once again, it's going to be a state-by-state variation, you know.
I asked one of our funeral home operators, and he said they thought that they were probably close to 50% now.
And we are seeing at Green Hill, we are in that 31, 32%, what we're doing. I've been in the funeral industry for about 30 years, and the last probably 8 to 10 years is where this boom has actually started. Those of us that are in this industry or this business, whatever, we're seeing that traditions. I mean, it's driven by economy. Traditions, once again, is kind of pointing towards that cremation. We opened up 7.5 acres in 2007. The former superintendent that was there, he and I had discussed whenever that was first cleared that would be about a 20 to 25 year project, if you will. With the cremation rates, it's now appearing, and I'm talking about current cremation rates, it's appearing that 20 to 25 year projection is actually going to extend out to about a 30 to 35 year projection, and that is, once again, at today's the current rates. This 7.5 acres could easily go into the 35 to 40 year before we fill this up. With this 5.5 acres that we're willing to sell to the county, that's still going to leave the cemetery approximately 18 acres of usable space. So you're looking at the rate. I mean, we're a couple of 100 years out of actually running out of room. Which is once again why I've deemed it okay to surplus this and sell it.
Mr. Tucker, if we do this and accept this motion and pass it, you will come back to us with that information?
Absolutely.
Okay.
I've got an observation. I went to a seminar just last year. I've been to 2 seminars in the past 3 years, one in San Diego last year exclusively on this topic. If this wasn't the Bible Belt, southern Oklahoma, I would tell Vernon he's behind the 8 ball. He's ahead of the 8 ball right now because of our old traditions and people's thoughts about being buried and being burned. It's just a little different here, but nationally it's a big tidal wave, and if Vernon does some of what he'd like to do out there, he's going to be assuring extra revenue for the cemetery. Otherwise, if you put in columbariums and have sources for people to, so it's it's something that needs to be done because it's coming one way or the other. The biggest reason that some of these southern states are finally moving into it is strictly money. They still have the funny feelings about it, but they just don't have an alternative. But nationally and up north and northeast, it's no big deal, and this is what we're doing, and that's what they're doing. So I think Vernon even thinking about this and planning for it's very, very smart.
I think it's a smart thing to do.
Other comments or questions?
Yes, I have a little one here. So we're going to sell this. Are they going to put, what kind of fence are they going to put around this yard if they do this in case those trees start disappearing in there?
That has actually not been discussed. It is my hope that it would be a chain link fence, and that I'm assuming that you're probably looking at the aerial there of that those trees that east-west boundary between us and the county. The hopes would be that those would stay as a buffer, so that doesn't wind up being like what we have at Acme up there. They had planted some trees back several years ago to try to create a little fence or whatever up there, and those trees, because of the droughts and things, those have died out on Acme. So. And then also I want to point out in early 1900, I want to say it was 1901 or 2, somewhere around in there, we actually have the U.S. prison system actually owns some spaces in that wooded area right there, and there's one U.S. prisoner buried in there. So we want to be sure. That was the other thing of how we determined where that boundary was. Even though we don't know the exact location of that, we have from measurements and kind of the best records that we can tell. We want to protect the integrity of that grave as well.
Okay. Comments or questions? Otherwise, we'll entertain a motion.
Move for approval.
Second.
A motion and a second. Discussion?
I'll just hold it to myself. I'll ask him personally.
Okay.
I'm sorry, Mayor. Let me ask one quick question. When they come back with the other information that we need, is it possible or logical even to look at some kind of 5-year, 25, 30-year outlay in terms of what the plan may be, so that as the space fills up, we have other options in terms of other graves and where other graves can go? I know we have the extra 18 acres that's not being used at all, but
right.
I guess some kind of plan or long-term plan for once it fills, what are the other options, and hopefully never in our lifetime, but
yeah, because you said it was out 200 years, didn't you?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep. Yes.
But yes, we can.
I just think that would be good to have as a matter of the record.
Absolutely. We'll certainly put that together when we bring back, at the same time we bring back the contract. If that'll be.
Thank you.
Fine.
You ready for a roll call? All right. Roll call.
Deputy Mayor James Scully.
No.
Janie Boydston.
Yes.
Patrick Kell.
Yes.
Marlon Coleman.
Yes.
Wayne Johnson.
Yes.
Ivory Van.
Yes.
Derek Reed.
Yes.
Dan Hall.
Yes.
Mayor Coburn.
Yes, motion carries. Item number 19.
Consider approval of the appointment of Danny Tracy to the Uniform Building Code Appeals Board to serve a 5-year term beginning on May 1st, 2016 and ending on April 30th, 2021, or take other necessary action.
Councilor Coleman.
This recommendation came highly recommended at from staff within the city because we have several committees that need to be appointed, and they have to have certain qualifications. One of those committees is the Uniform Code of Commissions, and one of the professions that we need to have is someone that has a background in fire suppression. And Mr. Tracy is uniquely qualified to serve on this board in this capacity, and I would recommend approval for his appointment.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Is there comment or discussion? Roll call.
Deputy Mayor James Scully.
Yes.
Janie Boydston.
Yes.
Patrick Kell.
Yes.
Marlon Coleman.
Yes.
Wayne Johnson.
Yes.
Ivory Van.
Yes.
Derek Reed.
Yes.
Dan Hall.
Yes.
Mayor Coburn.
Yes. Motion carries. We'll now recognize citizens wishing to speak. Ivory Van, you had signed up to speak, sir, regarding Robinson Park.
Gold. Yes. Leaf. Gold leaf, huh?
Ira Van, 911 East Holden. Tonight, I'd like to thank Councilman Reed and myself. We went to Kendall Place. They invited us to come to their like a ward meeting, but it wasn't. They just wanted to meet with the councilman. Also, we invited all the city attorney, invited the city manager, and all the staff that came out there, and they gave their viewpoints. And I'd like for every community in Ward 3 or in all the wards to do this, for people to invite us to come to their ward, just to go over things and talk about different things there in the city. So that's one thank you I would like to make tonight, and just thank the Kendall District for inviting us to come to their district. They held the meeting at Grace Episcopal Church. Another thing I would like to thank is Mr. Stewart, Mr. Tucker, Mr. Mike Ruby at Robinson Park. Now we have lights for our basketball court. Those kids can go out there at night and play basketball. And I had them come up to you yesterday. Some little kids came up and just gave me a big hug. You know, and I told them to come call the city of Muskogee and thank the different people there, and just say thank you to the city of Muskogee for getting these lights for them to play basketball. Because before they'd have to use their car lights and stuff, and now we're in the big leagues now. We got lights, and those kids are really having a good time out there when it gets dark. So I just wanted to say thank you to the city of Muskogee for this. And Councilman Reed, you're going to have to go by there tonight and look at across that side of the track and see how those lights look, because they really look great. But again, I'd like to say thank you to the city of Muskogee and the citizens, the little kids. Another thing I was going to say, I go down there and I talk to those. They're not only little kids, but they're college students, the high school kids, and they get to talking. You talking to them, you kind of build a relationship with them, just like it's a skate park. I go to the skate park and I talk to those kids too, because sometimes those kids just need guidance, and the best thing we can invest our money and our time in is our children. And I definitely believe in going down to the parks and talking to those kids, because I learn a lot from them. So again, I'd like to say thank you, and may God bless you, and like I said, bless all the children that go down there, and just continue. I'm going to continue to go down there and talk to them.
Thank you, sir. We will now go to item number 20, A and B.
Consider an executive session to discuss and take possible action on the following. A, pursuant to Section 307B4, Title 25, Oklahoma statutes, consider convening an executive session to discuss the workers' compensation claim of Connie Emerson, and if necessary, take appropriate action in open session. B, pursuant to Section 307C10, Title 25, Oklahoma statutes, consider convening an executive session for the purpose of conferring on matters pertaining to economic development within the city of Muskogee, and if necessary, take appropriate action in open session.
We'll now consider the executive session motion.
So moved.
Second.
The motion is second. Any discussion? Roll call.
Deputy Mayor James Scully.
Yes.
Janie Boydston.
Yes.
Patrick Kale.
Yes.
Marlon Coleman.
Yes.
Wayne Johnson.
Yes.
Ivory Van.
Yes.
Derek Reed.
Yes.
Dan Hall.
Yes.
Mayor Coburn.
Yes, motion carries. We'll now consider ourselves in executive session. We'll now reconvene out of executive session. Roll call, please.
Mayor Bob Coburn.
Here.
Deputy Mayor James Scully.
Here.
Dan Hall.
Here.
Marlon Coleman.
Here.
Janie Boydston.
Here.
Wayne Johnson.
Yes.
Patrick Kale.
Here.
Ivory Van.
Here.
Derek Reed.
Here.
Item 20A and 20B, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Pursuant to Section 307B4, Title 25 Oklahoma statutes, council did convene an executive session to discuss the workers' compensation claim of Connie Emerson. And after being fully briefed, I believe a motion is appropriate, authorizing the total settlement of all claims related to Mr. Emerson in the amount of $49,000.
Move for approval.
Second.
Motion and a second. Is there comment or discussion? Roll call.
Deputy Mayor James Scully.
Yes.
Janie Boydston.
Yes.
Patrick Kale.
Yes.
Marlon Coleman.
Yes.
Wayne Johnson.
Yes.
Ivory Van.
Yes.
Derek Reed.
Yes.
Dan Hall.
Yes.
Mayor Coburn.
Yes, motion carries. Item B.
Item 20B, pursuant to Section 307C10, Title 25 Oklahoma statutes, council did convene an executive session for the purpose of conferring on matters pertaining to economic development within the city of Muskogee. And after being fully briefed and discussing the matter, no action is necessary.
That concludes our agenda. Thank you.